Planet Uranus, the coldest planet. Uranus differs from other planets in the solar system with its peculiar chemical composition, extreme temperatures, and unusual axial tilt. In this article, we detail Pakazhem about this planet and its distinctive features, as well as when it is best to observe it in the sky. Go! Who discovered Uranus? People have observed Uranus even before William Herschel, who is considered the discoverer of this planet, but usually mistaken for a star. In 128 BC, the Greek astronomer Hipparchus included Uranus in his catalogue of stars. Centuries later, in 1690, English astronomer John Flamsteed made the same mistake and registered Uranus as star 34 in the constellation Taurus. William Herschel also failed to determine the nature of the object he found, but it was Herschel's observations on March 13, 1781 that led to the recognition of Uranus as a planet. While Herschel described the object he found as a comet, other astronomers, noticing its movement across the sky, suspected that this object was a new planet. By 1783, Herschel himself admitted that the comet he had found was in fact a planet. How massive is Uranus? Uranus is considered a giant planet. If the Earth were the size of a large apple, then Uranus would be the size of a basketball. However, to observers from Earth, the ice giant does not look large. Its apparent size varies from 3.3 inches to 4.1 inches, while the apparent size of Mercury, Camoi, the small planet in the solar system, is from 4.5 inches to 13 inches. Size of Uranus. Uranus is the third largest and fourth largest planet in the solar system. The radius of the pale blue planet is slightly larger than the radius of Neptune, 25,362 kilometers versus 24,622 kilometers, respectively. Size of Uranus in relation to Earth. The volume of Uranus is 63 times larger than the volume of the Earth. 63 terrestrial spheres can fit inside this planet. In addition, the ice giant is about 4 times wider than the Earth. To better understand the size of Uranus, take a look at this NASA image, which shows the sizes of all the planets relative to each other. Orbit and rotation of Uranus. Studying the orbit of Uranus helped astronomers discover Neptune. The French scientist Pierre-Simon Laplace in 1783 calculated the orbit of Uranus, but over time, differences were discovered between the predicted and observed positions of the planet. Astronomers have suggested that some cosmic body is interfering with the movement of the ice giant. Thanks to this assumption, they were able to establish the distance from the Sun to an unknown object and its approximate mass, and subsequently discovered Neptune. Tilt axis of rotation. Uranus rotates at an angle of 97.77 degrees, which means that Uranus' axis of rotation is almost parallel to the plane of its orbit. This is the most unusual axis of rotation among all the planets in the solar system. For comparison, Neptune, which is in the neighborhood, rotates at an angle of 28.5 degrees. As a result, at the moments of the solstices on this planet, one of the poles of Uranus is always directed towards the Sun. Each pole of Uranus is in darkness for 42 Earth years and is illuminated by the Sun for another 42 years. At the same time, at the moments of the equinoxes, the Sun is turned towards the equator of the planet, which leads to the usual change of day and night similar to that on other planets. It is not yet known why Uranus has such an unusual tilt of its axis of rotation. Scientists believe that this giant planet turned on its side 3-4 billion years ago due to one or more collisions with another space object. By the way, the same collision could lead to an unusual rotation of Uranus. Ice giant, like Venus, rotates clockwise, while the other planets of the solar system rotate counterclockwise, that is, in the same direction as the Sun. How long is a year on Uranus? Uranus takes 84 Earth years to complete one revolution around the Sun. In 2033, the ice giant will make the third complete revolution around our star since the discovery of the planet in 1781. How long is a day on Uranus? Due to the remoteness of the planet from the Sun, sidereal and solar days on Uranus are almost equal. The former lasts 17 hours 14 minutes and 24 seconds, and the latter are 1 second less. The duration of 1 year on Uranus is 42,718 Uranian solar days. How far is Uranus? Uranus is the 7th planet from the Sun. Beyond it is only Neptune, if you do not take into account the dwarf planet Pluto. Distance from Uranus to the Sun. The average distance from Uranus to the Sun is 28 or 2 billion kilometers. Following an elongated orbit, this planet can reach the maximum, Aphelion, and minimum, Perihelion, distance from the star. By the way, Uranus has more difference between Aphelion and Perihelion than any other planet. Approximately 1.8 AE distance from Uranus to Earth. Since the planets of the solar system are in constant motion, the distance between them changes daily. At its closest approach to Earth, Uranus is 2.6 billion kilometers from us. At the greatest distance, the distance between the planets is 3.2 billion kilometers. How long does it take to get to Uranus? NASA's Voyager 2 space probe reached the ice giant in 9.5 years. It was launched in August 1977 and approached Uranus on January 24, 1986. No other spacecraft have flown past the ice giant, so we don't yet know of a shortcut to the planet. Exploration of Uranus. Voyager 2 is the only space probe in history to study Uranus. It took Voyager 2 just under a decade to get to the planet, while collecting all the important information in just 6 hours. The NASA spacecraft also explored the rings and moons of the giant planet. While several Uranus space exploration missions have been developed, as of 2021 none have been further developed. So far, we've been collecting information about the ice giant through observations with the Hubble Space Telescope and with the help of several powerful ground-based telescopes. What is Uranus made of? Uranus and Neptune are the two ice giants of the solar system. Essentially, Uranus is a ball of gas and ice. Formation of Uranus. Like the rest of the planets in the solar system, Uranus formed about 4.5 billion years ago. The material that formed Uranus and the other giant planets was enough to allow the planets to become so massive. Uranus, most likely, initially formed closer to the Sun, but then changed its orbit and took its place as the seventh planet from our star. Structure of Uranus. Uranus is made up of 3 layers, a small core of iron and nickel in the center, an icy shell in the middle, and a hydrogen-helium atmosphere containing methane on the outside. The planet's ice shell, more than 80% of the mass, consists of a hot and dense liquid, which is a mixture of water, methane, and ammonia. Surface of Uranus. The ice giant Uranus does not have a solid surface. Its gaseous atmosphere passes into the inner liquid shell. You cannot walk on the surface of Uranus or land a spacecraft on it. You will simply drown. By the way, the same thing will happen on Jupiter. Plus, Uranus is incredibly cold. It is the coldest planet in the solar system, even though it is not the farthest from the Sun. It is unknown why the ice giant is so cold. Some scientists believe that the reason is the tilt of its axis of rotation. Others suggest that as a result of the aforementioned collision with another object. Uranus lost most of its internal heat and the temperature of the planet's core decreased. Moons of Uranus. Like other giant planets, Uranus has its own natural satellites. They were named after characters from the works of William Shakespeare and Alexander Pope. This is an exception to the rule. Usually satellites take their names from Greek and Roman mythology. How many moons does Uranus have? There are 27 known moons of Uranus. Against the background of the satellites of the rest of the giant planets, they stand out with a small mass. Even the total mass of the 5 largest Uranian satellites, Miranda, Ariel, Umbriel, Titania, and Oberon, will not be half the mass of Triton, the largest satellite of Neptune. To better understand their size, imagine that the surface of any of these moons is smaller than the area of the Australian continent. The inner moons of Uranus are half water ice and half rocky materials. The composition of the rest remains unknown, but there is a theory that they are asteroids captured by the planet's gravity. The largest moon of Uranus. The largest moon of the ice giant Titania is the 8th largest moon in the solar system. Its diameter is 1,578 kilometers, which is about half the diameter of our moon. Like the moon, this satellite is tidally locked and always faces only one side of Uranus. The reddish surface of Titania is covered with canyons and craters that reach 326 kilometers in diameter. Rings of Uranus. This is the second ring system discovered in the solar system. The first was Saturn's ring system. Her discovery helped astronomers understand that rings are common on planets. How many rings does Uranus have? Uranus has 13 known rings. In order of increasing distance from the planet, they are arranged as follows. 1986 U2RT 6 5 4 A B N Y 8 cap
запятая,
V and P. The inner narrow rings appear dark gray, while the two outer rings, V and Cyrillic letter J, appear bright. What are the rings of Uranus made of? The rings of Uranus are made up of water ice and radioactive organic matter. A 2016 study suggests that the rings of Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune may be the remnants of dwarf planets like Pluto that are too close to the giant planets. As a result, the dwarf planets were torn apart by the powerful gravity of the giant planets, but remained in the form of rings. Upcoming events. February 7th, Moon and Uranus approach on February 7th at 23:33 Moscow time. The Moon and Uranus will pass close to each other in the sky with a distance of about 1 degree between them. Using a telescope to see them together will not work too far, so it is better to use binoculars. On the night of approach, the waxing moon will shine at an apparent magnitude of -11.7, and dim Uranus at a magnitude of only 5.8, so it will not be visible to the naked eye. Both objects will be located in the constellation Aries. February 7th, Moon occultation of Uranus. At the same time, from the Earth it will be possible to see how the Moon will pass in front of Uranus. Such an event is called the occultation of the Moon. True, it will be observed only from Antarctica, the Southern Ocean and the southern part of the Atlantic Ocean. Observers from other regions will only be able to see the convergence that we talked about above. This is a common situation for astronomical coverages. In different places, the exact position of the Moon is always different, up to 2 degrees. You might think that this is a very small difference, but in fact it is about 4 times the apparent size of the full Moon. In other words, if an observer from one part of the Earth sees how the Moon passes in front of a space object and covers it, then for an observer from another part of the Earth, the Moon will be located at some distance from the same object. FAQ. What color is Uranus? Due to methane in the atmosphere, Uranus has a pale greenish-blue hue. Outwardly, Uranus is very similar to Neptune, but the former has a more saturated green color. How did Uranus get its name? The discoverer of Uranus, William Herschel, wanted to name the new planet Georgium Sidus, Latin for Star of George, in honor of King George III. However, the name was coldly received outside of England. As a result, the German astronomer Johann Bode proposed to name the planet Uranus in honor of the ancient Greek god of the sky. Uranus is a gas giant? The main composition of Uranus is stone and ice particles, which is why it is called an ice giant. Saturn and Jupiter are mostly gas, so they are gas giants. Interesting facts. It's raining diamonds on Uranus. Powerful pressure at the center of the planet turns carbon particles into diamonds. In English, the name of the planet Uranus is often mispronounced. YouTube even has a video on how to pronounce the name of this planet correctly. Uranus was the first planet discovered with a telescope. The fact is that Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are bright enough to be observed with the naked eye. Uranus is the only planet whose name comes from ancient Greek mythology. The rest of the planets were named after characters from ancient Roman myths. Now you know all the strangest facts about Uranus. If you liked the article, share it on social networks. And don't forget to watch our cartoon about Uranus. We wish you clear skies and good observations.
Image source, Vito Technology, Inc. Text source, Vito Technology, Inc.